Alright, so these are going to be all the different notes over operations. Guys, this is one of the most important things you've got to learn this year. Last year we struggled with it a lot. I had to teach the same lesson probably 6 times. Okay? We have got to learn these. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of tricks to learning this. Alright, all of these different rules you just have to memorize. I wish there was a funner way, but there's really not. It's got to get to the point where it's automatic. Okay? So, the different operations. What we've already talked about. Operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Alright? We're going to cover all of those operations with positive, negative numbers, decimals, and fractions. So the first thing we need to talk about, and excuse my handwriting, is positive. Ooh, that E is ugly. And negatives. It's trying to be. How about that? Positive and negatives. Now, you guys are pretty good with decimals. You're pretty good with fractions. You're pretty terrible with positive and negative numbers. So we have got to focus on this. This is something we've got to get down. Alright? We had a lot of trouble with it last year. It's not going to go away, so we've got to get this to where we're more comfortable with it. Okay, positive and negatives. The first thing I want to talk about is addition. We already dealt with addition a little bit during the warm-up. Okay? In addition, if signs are the same, if the signs are the same, so they're both negative or they're both positive, you're going to add and keep that sign. Alright? If signs are the same, you're going to add and keep the sign. If signs are different, you're going to subtract and keep the larger number sign. Those are your 2 rules. If the signs are the same, you add and keep the sign. If the signs are different, you subtract and keep the larger numbers sign. Give you a little bit of time to write that down. Alright, let's do a couple examples of these. Let's say you have negative 3 plus negative 2. And then let's say you have negative 3 plus 2, 3 plus negative 2, and 3 plus 2. Alright. Negative 3 plus negative 2. Are my signs different or the same? They are the same. I have a negative and a negative. If the signs are the same, we add and keep the sign. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and we're going to keep it a negative. We got negative 3 plus 2. Are signs different or the same? Different. You have a negative and a positive. If they're different, we're going to subtract. What do we get when we subtract those? 1. Was my larger number positive or negative? So my answer is a negative. Alright, 3 plus negative 2. Again, our signs are different. So we subtract and we get 1. Is my larger number positive or negative? Positive. So my answer is positive. Now, regular 3 plus 2, you've had this for a long time. Alright, they're both positive. My signs are the same, so we just add and keep the sign. It stays positive. Now, you guys had a lot of trouble remembering this last year. So here's a way that I kind of help those 7th graders. You may like this, you may not. It's up to you if you use it. Right? But if we look at these numbers, like -3 and -2, they're both negatives, right? They're both negatives, their signs are the same, they're going to get along. Right? If they get along, they're going to hang out, and they're going to keep the same sign. Right? So if they're getting along, we're going to add them together, they're going to keep that sign. However, if you look right here at 3 and -2, our signs are different. These are different people. They're not going to like each other. They're not going to hang out very well. So instead of adding and hanging out, they're going to subtract. They're going to fight each other. All right? They're going to fight. And by fight, I mean they're going to subtract. And whichever is the larger one is going to win that fight. That's typically how it works in life. The larger guy normally wins. So the larger number is going to win, and when they win, they get to keep their sign. All right? So if you want to think of it in violent terms, there you go. If you're the same, you're going to join up and keep the same sign. If you're different, you're going to fight it out and keep the larger number sign. Does that make sense? All right? You don't have to use that if you don't want, but I thought it was a simple analogy to kind of remember. All right. Any questions on the addition? Okay. Next we have subtraction. Whoa. All right. Subtraction. We don't want to do subtraction in problems. The only time we want to subtract is when we're adding things with different signs. So what we're going to do is change the minus sign to a plus sign. Then we're going to flip the sign of the number right after. We're going to do some examples of this. But we want to change the minus to a plus and then flip the sign right after. So minus a -2 is going to become plus a +2. Minus a +2 is going to become plus a -2. All right? We're gonna do some examples so you can see that. The biggest problem we had last year, the biggest problem, was you would either do step 1 and not do step 2, or you would do step 2 and not do step 1. All right? You have to do both of these. You cannot just change the minus to a plus and move on. You have to flip that sign right afterwards. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay? So let me do a couple examples here. 3 minus 2, 3 minus a -2, -4 minus 5, and -4 minus a -10. There we go. All right. We want to change all of these to addition. That way we don't have to learn any more rules. So, change the minus to a plus and change the sign. So 3 minus 2 becomes 3 plus a -2. We're going to change the minus to a plus. And we're going to flip the sign. Don't just do one or the other. So 3 minus a -2 becomes 3 plus a +2. Change the minus to a plus, flip the sign afterwards. So -4 minus 5 becomes -4 plus a -5. -4 minus a -10 becomes -4 plus a +10. Once you do that, now it's back to addition. The rules that we just did. Signs are different, so we're going to subtract and keep the larger number sign. Signs are the same, so we're going to add and keep the sign. Signs are the same, so we're going to add and keep the sign. Signs are different, so we're going to subtract and keep the larger number sign. All right? Once you change it to addition, we go right back to those original rules. But you've got to know how to change it to addition. You can't halfway know how. You've got to know how. All right? Too many times I saw you guys use one of those steps and not both. All right? Any question over subtraction? All right, we're going to practice these a lot. Now we're to multiplication and division. These should be the easiest. Same signs give you a positive answer. Different signs give you a negative answer. So negative 2 times negative 4 equals a positive 8. The signs are the same. We multiply. The signs are the same. It's a positive answer. But negative 2 times a positive 4, 2 times 4 is still 8, but now our signs are different, so our answer is going to be a negative. Division is going to work the same way. You're still going to divide like always. If the signs are the same, your answer is positive. If your signs are different, your answer is negative. Here's the problem we had last year. And this is a problem you need to make sure you're paying attention to. You guys would use this rule right here for addition and subtraction. This rule does not work for addition and subtraction. That's why we just spent 10 minutes covering a different set of rules. Okay? You have to memorize which set of rules goes with which operation. All right? Addition is same signs, add and keep the sign. Different signs, subtract and keep the larger sign. All right? Multiplication and division is whenever we just multiply, same signs are positive, different signs are negative. All right? I'm going to say that so much that you're going to get sick of it, and I'm definitely going to get sick of it. But we've got to get that figured out. There are two different rules, and we've got to stop crossing over. All right? We have way too much crossing over last year of getting these rules confused with each other. Again, there's no simple way. You're just going to have to study it. That's why we're taking these notes, something for you to look back on. All right? Any questions on multiplication and division? It should be the easiest, but don't get these rules confused with addition and subtraction. All right. Now that's everything with positive and negative numbers. All right? So now we're going to do a little bit of reviewing, and we're going to talk about decimals. Hopefully you guys know your rules with decimals and fractions, but we've still got to make sure to cover our bases here. Alright, so on decimals. First we're going to talk about add and subtract. First off, we're going to change the subtraction to addition like we just talked about. Alright, using the same method we did just a second ago. Then you're going to line up your decimals. And add. Line up the decimals and add. All right. Hopefully you guys know how to work with decimals. All right. But here's what it's going to do. To trip you guys up a little bit, I'm going to change the page here. An example they may give you is, let's say, negative 1.2 plus 2.04. Now we've got negatives and positives. All right? Are my signs the same or different? Different. So what do I have to do? we've got, when the signs are different, what do? We're going to subtract. So, I have to subtract from the larger number. What's the larger number? 2.0. Alright. And I'm going to subtract 1.2. Alright. Notice I lined up my decimals. Alright. That way that decimal can just drop down. Alright, I need to put a 0 here just to fill in. Now I get to subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. 10 minus 2 is 8. And 1 minus 1 is 0. Now, was my larger number a positive or a negative? Up here it's a positive, so my answer is a positive. So the positive and negative rules still apply even though we're dealing with decimals now. So, if I went negative 2.02 plus negative 0.3, right. Are signs different or the same? They're the same, so what do I have to do? Add and what? Add and keep the sign. So, to add these up, I've got to line up my decimal. Add filler zeros where I need to. 2 and 0 is 2. 0 and 3 is 3. 2 and 0 is 2. Alright? They were both negatives, so my answer is going to keep that sign. Everybody see how that works? Right. So your positive and negative rules still apply here. Right. Now, if I were to give you 1.1 minus 3.2, right, I still want to say, okay, minus is also, we're going to change it to plus a negative. Now we're back to our rules. Signs are different, so we're going to subtract. Was my larger number a positive or a negative? So my answer is a negative. There we go. As long as you know how to line up your decimals and you still remember your rules from positive and negative numbers, they just go together. Alright, so that covers addition and subtraction. Alright, multiplication. You want to count the number of decimal places and put that many decimal places in your answer. Count the number of decimal places, put that number of decimal places in your answer. Again, hopefully this is major review. Alright, so, example of this. Let's say I have negative 3.02 times 1.11. Alright, so I multiply just like I have anyway. Alright. How many decimal places did I have to begin with? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 4 decimal places down here. Alright? Now, were my signs the same or different? So what does that mean for my answer? It's going to be a negative. There you go. Again, positive and negative rules still apply. You just got to count your decimal places. Alright? This is something you should have learned years ago. Most of you are not bad at this, but again, we've got to make sure we cover our bases. Any questions on multiplication? Alright. Division. I don't know why I just circled that. Alright, outside the house, you're going to move the decimal till you have a whole number. Right. Inside, you're going to move the decimal the same amount, or the same number of times. Alright, so if I said negative 4.2 divided by 0.02, alright, what number goes inside the house? 4.2. Outside is 0.02. Now, how many times do I need to move the decimal on 0.02 to make it a whole number? I'm going to have to go 2 times to the right. So in here, I've got to go 2 times to the right. So what that changes it to is 2 divided by 420. All right. Which gives us 210. Now, were my signs different or the same? So what's my answer? All right. Those are all your operations on decimals. All right. Fun, fun, fun. Now on to everyone's favorite. Fractions. Yay! Try to hold back your enthusiasm. Fractions. Alright, so, just like with decimals, positive and negatives are still going to apply here. Alright, so we'll practice that a little bit. Starting with addition and subtraction. What do we have to find? When adding and subtracting. The what? Nope. When adding fractions, we have to change our fractions so that we can add them. Oh, sorry. There it is. The least common denominator. We have to have the same denominator to add and subtract fractions. So we've got to figure out what the least common denominator is. Once you do that, you're going to say top plus top Bottom stays the same. I say top plus top because if it's subtraction, we're going to change it to addition, just like we've been doing. Same stuff still applies to fractions. So, top plus top, bottom stays the same. The denominator doesn't change. That's why we had to find a common denominator. So, an example would be 1/2 plus a negative 3/5. Alright, what's my common denominator? 10. And we're adding. To get 2 to become 10, I had to multiply times 5. What's 1 times 5? Alright, to change 5 to 10, I had to multiply by 2. What's negative 3 times 2? Negative 6. Alright, are my signs the same or different? Different. So what do I have to do? I have to subtract. First off, denominator stays the same no matter what, so I don't have to worry about that. What do I get when I subtract 5 and 6? I get 1. My larger number was negative, so my answer's a negative. Same rules apply. That's why we covered those positive and negative rules first. Alright, let's say 3/4 minus, let's say negative 3/4 minus 5/6. Alright, I don't want to have subtraction, so what do I change this to? Am I done? Yeah, I've got to change the positive 5/6 to a negative 5/6. Alright, what's my least common denominator? Nope. There's a smaller one. 12. 24 would work. Alright, let me start off by saying 24 would work. Alright, but you're dealing with larger numbers. 12 is smaller, so it's a little bit easier. Alright, if 4 becomes 12, what does 3 become? 9. And remember, it's a negative. To change 6 to 12, I did times 2. What's negative 5 times 2?
10.
Negative 10. Denominator stays the same. Negative 9 plus negative 10. Are my signs the same or different?
Same.
Same. So what do I do? Add and keep the sign. They both have the same sign. So 9 plus 10 is 19, and we keep it negative. Now there is a whole number I can pull out of this. How many times does 12 go into 19?
What?
And what would be left over?
7.
And we got to remember to keep that 1 a negative. But there you go. Alright, so that's addition and subtraction. Alright. Next we have multiplication. Multiplication is the easiest. Top times top. Not top. And bottom times bottom. Top times top, bottom times bottom. Alright. So, negative 1/2 times negative, 1/4. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Both of my numbers were negative, so what is my answer? Positive. Signs are the same, your answer becomes a positive. Alright? If I said negative 1/3 times a positive 2/5, 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 5 is 15. Are my signs different or the same? Different. So what is my answer? Negative. Should be one of the easier operations. Top times top, bottom times bottom. Next you have division. Anybody remember the rules for division and fractions? KCF. Keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. Alright, so if I have negative 1/2 divided by 3/4, I have to keep, change, and flip. Keep the negative 1/2, change the division to multiplication, and flip 3/4 to 4/3. Now I can go back to top times top, bottoms times bottom. What's negative 1 times positive 4? Negative 4. The signs are different, so my answer is a negative. What's 2 times 3? 6. That reduces to negative 2/3. That's it. Keep, change, flip. Alright. If I have 3/5 divided by negative 2/7, I have to keep, change, and flip. Keep 3/5, change division to multiplication, flip negative 2/7 to negative 7/2. The negative stays on top. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. 5 times 2 is 10. How many times will 10 go into 21? 2 times. And what's left over? 1/10. That's division. The only other concept we need to review, just to make sure you know it, around the world. We cannot do any fraction operations. We cannot add, subtract, multiply, and divide with a mixed number. A mixed number is a whole number outside with a fraction next to it. We can't use these. We've got to change them into improper fractions. Improper fractions are when the top number is bigger than the bottom. To do this, you have to go around the world. You have to say, okay, 2 times 4, and then add that answer into the top. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. And the bottom number stays the same. That is around the world. You need to be able to do that. Right? That's every single thing that you need to know as far as operations are concerned.